I thought it would be kind of neat, so did Mike, just kind of putting a little bit of history behind some of the gravestones that were at the cemetery. So I did a little bit of research. Found a couple of the gravestones, found a couple of the people. I'm going to have to look at my notes because I'm not going to remember this 100% off the top of my head. But one of them, Thomas Moss. That gravestone was one of the ones that was toppled over right at the beginning, right by the entrance. And there was one big chunk and then a smaller chunk. And there was really not much information, just Moss, the name. Well, I guess back in 1994, I think it was. Well, actually, I don't have an exact year. But I guess at one point they went in there and the stone was toppled over. And the name piece, the piece with all the information, the dates and everything else, was laying near the entrance on the ground. Like someone may have been trying to steal it. So his family did grab that piece and they donated it to the Tinley Park Historical Society. And it's at their museum. Instead of putting it back on the tombstone, they actually have it in the museum now. So that was kind of interesting. Another one, there's John Hamilton. That stone disappeared. They don't know when it disappeared, but it did disappear. In 2013, someone bought a house in Joliet, and he found the tombstone in his backyard. How long it had been there, they guessed somewhere around 23 years. He figured out where that tombstone was supposed to go and contacted the proper authorities so it could get put back at Bachelor's Grove. So that tombstone has been relocated back to its original spot, or as close to the original spot that they thought it was in. But that's one of the many tombstones that had been stolen and did get found. There's the spot, too, that was close to our main tombstone that we were by with the little girl and the father that was enclosed. It was a really weird spot. It was like enclosed in stone, like in a rectangular shape, but there was no names, there was nothing there. So I did finally find something. There was not a lot of information on this person, so I'm still very confused as to why there is this rectangular enclosure. It's kind of weird that they had that, but that enclosed lot had Louise Butch and Joanna Butch in it. So Louise Butch and Joanna Butch were in that enclosed rectangular lot. Don't know why they were in that enclosed rectangle. Don't know what the whole story is behind them. That's all I could find. But I just thought, hey, I'll put their names in there because they didn't have an actual marker saying who they were. A lot of the open space we found, it actually is open space that was never purchased. So a lot of those open spots in that area that didn't have any markers, any tombstones, actually should not have anyone buried in them because it actually was never a purchased lot. So we did find that out. There are still a lot of people buried in that cemetery. There were still a lot of areas that were missing their tombstones because I did find a picture that showed all the lots that they had, all the lots that were purchased, and all the lots that were missing tombstones and had their tombstones. So that was kind of interesting that the whole cemetery was not filled up, but there were a lot of lots that were missing their tombstones. Whether it was from people stealing them or it seems a lot were stolen just from the stories I was reading. So there's a good chance people were missing their tombstones because someone came in and stole them. Which I don't understand why people would do that. Just don't understand it. The main tombstone, the one that primary focus was on, was that big tombstone Fulton. It had the father stone and the infant daughter stone. There was another spot that looked as if a stone was missing, and it was. But the father, we found his name was John Fulton Jr. The missing stone was Huldah Fulton. That was the mother stone. They believe that one has been missing since about 1994. Actually, probably sooner than that. But 1994 is when they did a survey and found that stone to be missing. The infant daughter is actually not their daughter. It's their granddaughter. And that was Macy. I have to look. Marcy May Fulton. She passed away, I'm guessing, probably stillborn or instantly after birth because her birth year and birth or her birth year and her death year were both the same, and there were no dates with it, like not May 9th to September 9th. It just said the birth year, death year, no actual date. But that was actually their granddaughter. They were buried with 4 of their 6 children in that lot as well. Only one of those children were documented as having a headstone, and that was Emma. Emma also passed away as an infant. I believe she was only 10 to 13 days old. She was very young. She was not even a full month old. She had a tombstone, or a little plaque that was on the ground, and that was stolen. It was stolen and then found in 1991. Yes, in 1991 they found that tombstone, and that tombstone was not returned to the plot. It was instead put at the Tinley Park Historical Society. So that is also being displayed at the Tinley Park Historical Society. They were also buried with 3 other children. The other 3 children were Luella Fulton, Frank Fulton, and Johnny Fulton. Johnny was 11 years old. That was their other younger child that passed away. But their whole family was not buried there, but a good majority of their children were buried with them. They had 6 children, 4 of the 6 were buried with them, and 1 grandchild. But I was looking through, and there's a lot of good history behind a lot of these tombstones. It was very interesting reading up on all these different tombstones, different families, the history behind how they passed away, or what happened to their stones, because some of them were found just like Hamilton's and Emma's. So it was very interesting seeing that these stones disappeared and were later found at someone's house, and were now returned either back to the plot or put into a museum. They did say there was a history at one point of bodies being dug up and vandalism to these tombstones, and tombstones being stolen when I was reading up on the history. So there's a lot of history at this cemetery. A lot of things happened. I don't know why. I don't know exactly what happened in all cases. That water body, I was also reading, supposedly had a lot of bodies thrown into it from the Chicago mob. So that was another interesting little thing, that there's more energy possibly there than even people that were actually buried on the property, from all this other negative stuff that did occur there before people came over there and did other black negative stuff on the property. So the research was pretty interesting. It was definitely an interesting thing to read up on. It was kind of cool to see some of the history behind it. And I'm glad I looked into some of it. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode.